came from outside? Do people hear about us? Do people know about us? Does people know that we're being killed every single day? Does people know about their suffering? Because even if they cannot do much, if they hear about it, if someone knows about our suffering, if someone knows about what we're going through, if someone is going to continue our legacy, if someone is going to extend our fight toward the apartheid system, the terrorist system of Israel, if someone knows that, then she's going to feel better. And then this doctor started showing her the pictures of the encampments, of the national marches, of the vigils, of the protests in every single corner of the world. And the girl, she cried. An 8-year-old girl, she cried when she understood that some people may carry her legacy. We have it in our hands. We have it in our existence to carry those people's legacies. We have it in our existence for Palestine to be the central living cause of our existence until the minute either we die or Palestine is liberated. Nothing other than those two. I would like to end my speech with you today on the fact that every person who died in Gaza has more stories to tell. A couple of days ago, the UCL students have been carrying a research on Dr. Rifat Al-Arir, another UCL alumni, that they rejected to condemn his death, that they rejected to attribute agency to his death. And we were hearing his story. We were hearing how he fled from one house to another, to another, to another. When we heard about his dreams, when we heard about his existence, when we heard about his grandson that he never saw, his daughter that even though she just gave birth few streets away, but because of the bombings he could not see his newborn child. When we heard about all of the stories, our existence shattered. Every part of us were moved. And then we remembered that even though we were lucky enough to hear about his story, there's 189,000 people that we didn't hear about their stories, that we didn't hear about their struggle. And alhamdulillah that they did this, not so people can clap for them, not so people can say, yeah, they were amazing, but alhamdulillah that they did this for the sake of Allah and for the sake of a God that never forgets. But for us, the way that we honor them, the way that we continue their legacy, is that we never stop, we never rest, we never move an inch, we never change, we never get distracted by our normal life. Maybe after this brief moment of history ends. Palestine is occupied for 76 years. It has been occupied, and a genocide, a massacre has been carried out every single day in this 76 years. The genocide in Gaza did not start 10 months ago. It started 76 years ago when this murderous occupation have started their occupation in this land. And the only way the Palestinian people are going to be freed, the only way the Palestinian people are going to gain their freedom and independence is if every single one of us dedicated our existence, our lives, our jobs, our monies, our properties, every single one of our existence to this cause until the last moments of our life. So make it a pact in this day, in this hour, that until Palestine is liberated, none of us is gonna rest, none of us is gonna be distracted until we see every single Palestinian liberated and back to their homes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Thank you so much, Osama, for that really powerful and inspiring speech. Next, we've got a special appearance from one of our allied health professionals, Shafa. She's a speech and language therapist, and we would like to welcome her. Thank you.
Wow, hi everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Hola. Bonjour. It's a real honor to be able to speak over here because I have been screaming and shouting as a speech and language therapist to give a voice to the voiceless in Gaza. It's really it's been a real challenge to get my to get the speech therapist basically to get involved. So speech and language therapists, we work with children and adults who have communication and swallowing difficulties, and early on in October 2023, I found out that a speech therapist who had been taking care of children who were affected by the war, she was martyred by a bomb which fell in the marketplace. And it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific because the children are being targeted indirectly and directly, and who's taking care of them? You don't hear the death of speech therapists. You don't hear about speech therapists being martyred, but they are allied health professionals and they take care of children who are showing signs of, for example, selective mutism. A lot of doctors over here, I'm sure Dr. James and Dr. Umar Adnan, they've all seen that children are showing signs of selective mutism, which is an anxiety disorder which children are experiencing because they are losing family members, they're being displaced, and not a lot of people are aware of what symptoms that these children are enduring, what symptoms they are showing. So speech language therapists, our role is really important in helping Gaza stand up again. For those children who've become orphans. I was just looking at a video this morning about how they're running orphanages, and we need speech and language therapists, amongst other allied health professionals, to help the children and the adults. Dr. Elena was talking to me about the tomorrow of Gaza and how many adults have experienced a stroke, for example. The stroke can result in a person being paralyzed, it can result in a person having swallowing difficulties, and these are all targeted and treated. We intervene and we provide therapy for people who have had a stroke, who have had hearing impairments. I mean, yesterday, who heard the loud thunder and lightning? In my area, the whole of Streatham in South London, everyone was traumatized. For a second, we thought a bomb had exploded. And one of my neighbors said, imagine that happening in Gaza every single day. Every single day, the sonic boom of bombardment. And can you imagine the hearing of little children, the hearing of people who have, for example, hyperacusis, so they have super sensitive hearing, autistic children. What happens to them when they hear continuous bombardment day in, day out? In London, in the UK, speech and language therapists, we fight tooth and nail for children to get speech therapy services so that they can lead normal, complete lives, so that they can have relationships, they can go to school, get an education. This is everything which the children of Gaza are missing out on because of the war criminal who wants to stop Gaza from moving forward, who wants to stop education from being a right of every child in Gaza. So for me, it's really, really disturbing when I see this, and I want people to raise their voices. I want other speech and language therapists to raise their voices and come forward and be the voice of the voiceless. There's just one case I'd really like to highlight is Muhammad al-Bahar. You guys must have heard of his martyrdom in the news. He was a boy, a 24-year-old boy with Down syndrome and autism, and his family were forced to evacuate their house, leaving him behind. The IOF set a dog loose on him, mauled him. This boy, Muhammad, he was non-verbal, which means that he did not speak, he did not communicate via words that you and I would use. He was non-verbal, and the last thing his family members heard was him saying, Habibi, enough. Habibi, enough. He was saying that to the dogs because he thought they were playing with him. They mauled him to death. The IOF let him die. Oh, it's upsetting. It's upsetting because without any treatment, without any family members, that person with autism who had Down syndrome, he bled to death. When his family came back, his body was decomposing. There were worms eating his face. This is people with special needs. They have special needs, autism. It's like we raise awareness of autism. We're aware of people who stammer in classrooms. There are just as many kids who have autism who are finding a diagnosis, and people seek treatment for these things. The IOF are targeting people with disabilities, and they're targeting them, they're killing them, their family members, their families are hurt. They're losing family members, and just today, a lot of you may have heard the news of another person with disabilities that he was found. They asked his family members to evacuate the house. He was unable to move because he had special needs, and they left him behind. They thought they were going to be gone for a few hours. 7 days later, they came back and found a decomposed body of this young gentleman. These are all people, they all have names, they are not just numbers. And we are all fighting for free Palestine, and until liberation, the resistance will continue. So I just want to say to all the encampment students at UCL, at King's, at every university, who at SOAS, who are taking a stand, we are with you, we support you, keep going strong. I'm UCL alumni, and the loss of Dr. Rifat Al-Arir really hit me hard. So keep fighting, you guys, until liberation. Free Palestine! Free
Palestine!
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shafaq. Thank you. And on that thread about UCL students, I just wanted to highlight that they're facing a court case. And so we would, I think, appreciate for any donation to the legal fees. You can go onto their Instagram page, UCL Encampment UCL stands number 4, Justice. Yeah? All right, go to their Instagram and you'll find a link to help them there. Thank you. The next person or the next speaker is a colleague, Dr. Nadine. You're here, thank you. Dr. Nadine is a consultant hematologist, and yes, we appreciate you, and she's a Palestinian, and therefore we really appreciate her presence here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me and standing here. I must say that every time I stand here, and I've been coming to the vigils since October, I don't feel like I deserve to be here. I'm Palestinian, I'm a medic, but I live here. I have a privileged life, safe, and I'm able to practice medicine. Well, my people and all the health workers, all the Palestinian health workers are being murdered, abducted, tortured, and that's what I have to live with and live with myself while I go through this. And for how long? These health workers have studied for a long time. They've sacrificed, their families have sacrificed. They have a gift to give for healing, and they have been directly targeted. They're not just killed, you know, as collateral damage, as some people say. They are directly killed and targeted. Utter shame. So I'm filled with intense grief, intense pain, and intense guilt. So I stand here in awe of all those health workers and all the health workers who have gone to Gaza to fight for them and to look after them and to help them. So we stand here in honor of them. And because of that, we should continue their legacy, just as we heard before. We shall continue so that their death will not be in vain. And with that, I'd like to quote the last two lines from the poem of Dr. Rifat Al-Arir. because he said at the end, if I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale. And that's what we have to all remind ourselves. And that is what we have to do. That is our mission. That is our purpose. So with that, one of the things that a call to action is this polio epidemic that's happening. It's happening right before our eyes, and no one is doing anything about it. So I was going to talk about polio next. So Gaza has been declared that there's an epidemic there by UNICEF, by MAP, and the WHO. For those of you who might not know, it's a dangerous disease. It affects mainly under 5s. And in 1 in 200 people causes paralysis. The paralysis could be so severe that people can't breathe and will need ventilating. And this was a problem of the early 19th century and 20th century. People might remember the iron lung, which was invented and created to look after those people and provide them ventilation. I think there is one in the Science Museum. And then vaccination was invented, and there is no cure. There are 3 serotypes of this poliovirus, and vaccination is against them. And then in 1988, there was a WHO resolution to have eradicated polio by 2000. Now, this is a massive world success story, really. Massive success. In 2016, there were only 42 cases worldwide, and that was only across 3 countries. So that is amazing. And polio was eradicated from Gaza in 1990. So now, polio type 2 serotype has been detected in the sewage in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Bala, where there is hundreds of refugees in tents and sewage moving between the tents. And why has this happened? It's because there was a complete destruction of the infrastructure in Gaza with all the bombings, complete destruction of the sewage system and the sanitation. There's a complete destruction of all the hospitals and healthcare facilities. There's a complete destruction and killing of health workers. And on top of that, how could anyone have been vaccinated? So there are all these children and babies who wouldn't have been vaccinated. So now, I ask the question that if the world does not care about Palestinians, and our government does not, as we have clearly seen, and if other people don't even care about Palestine, at least care about global health and what you're allowing to happen for letting a polio epidemic to run rampage in Gaza and then spread. Is that what we want after the success story? Utter and complete shame. And it's an utter and complete irresponsibility of all our institutions to not call it out for what it is. And the only way to stop this is by stopping the bombing, allowing all the humanitarian aid to come in, stop killing, rebuilding, and vaccinating. Now, WHO has just made a start by sending 1 million vaccines to Gaza. So that's good, but that won't be enough. And how are you going to reach those people? How are you going to keep the vaccines, how are they going to go through the bombings and continuously? Those vaccines might never reach enough people to make sure that polio does not become a real new problem for the world. And our institutions, our royal colleges haven't said anything, our trade unions haven't said anything, our academic institutions haven't said anything, and our hospitals have not said anything. And what do they hide behind? That we're going to stay apolitical. I'm going to repeat this again. I just can't stand this sentence that we're not going to be political. The word political means that there is an option of one of the two politics. The option of allowing the Palestinians to be bombed and their infrastructure to be destroyed and their hospitals to be decimated. That's not an option. It can never be an option. So don't let anyone tell you that it's political. There is only one option, and it's that Israel stops bombing, stops killing, and gets out of Gaza. And so with that, I want to end with a quote, and to show how relevant it is to us. Nelson Mandela said that, "But we know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of Palestinians." And in the same way, we're going to extend that our health is not complete without the health of the Palestinians. So thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Thanks so much, Nadine, for that very brave and really powerful speech. Next, we've got our own sort of hero. He's been to Gaza now for, I don't know how many times, James. So, Dr. James, please welcome him. Thank you.
Hi, folks. We're going to have words about calling me a hero afterwards, I think, which I really don't like. But it's lovely to be back with folks again today. And yeah, I really appreciate that we're still having these vigils and that we're still sort of holding space together, which I appreciate a great deal. There are a few things I want to say, and I'm going to keep it brief. I feel very uncomfortable coming up and speaking to folks. My only legitimacy really is, as has been mentioned, I was in Gaza twice, and that's it. The first thing I want to say, and others I appreciate have also already said this, but my full-time job at the moment is that I'm an academic at UCL, so I want to express explicitly and on camera my full support for students at UCL, who, and not just at UCL, SOAS, King's, elsewhere in the country, Durham, Newcastle, and so on. I mean, it's really students and folks here who've sort of reminded us over the course of the last 10 months what political organizing actually looks like, what it should look like, what it means, and the significance of sort of building and sustaining these communities, and just how important that is right now. The last few days alone have reminded us the political landscape in this country is disgusting, to say the least. And I say that not just in relation to, of course, how this government has aided and abetted the ongoing genocide, but of course we see the far right wing back on our streets. The EDL have come out of the cracks again. This is a real critical moment for community organizing in this country. And yeah, I say again that I appreciate that we are here and that we're showing up for one another in relation to Palestine, and of course the many intersecting struggles that we're trying to navigate at the moment. And perhaps the third thing I want to say, as we're being drowned out by the noise of our colleagues down the road there, I just got a voice message from a colleague who I worked with in Gaza who is now in Ukraine. And this isn't, of course, to diminish the violence in Ukraine or the political struggle that's taking place there. But he sent me a very brief voice note. I sent him a photograph of us here and the Ukrainian flags down the road there. And he said, you know, there's a weird irony, because in Gaza, it was the US shells that were targeting us. And in Ukraine, it's exactly the opposite. And I think we're reminded of, you know, there's the sort of so-called liberal global order that keeps some people safe, trying to effectively exterminate another people simultaneously. I've got a brief message, as I did last time. I want to read a brief message from my colleague Nermeen, who is in Gaza right now. We worked together for about 8 weeks when I was there back in April through to June. But before I do that, I also wanted to acknowledge the memory of Dr. Adnan Albersh. He was the head of orthopedics at Shifa Hospital. Dr. Albersh wasn't simply killed, if I can say that. He was detained, and as we understand at the moment, he was tortured to the point that he was killed in Israeli detention. About 3 days ago, there was a UN report that was released which confirmed what we already knew, what Palestinians who had been released from detention had been telling us for several months already, which were the horrific conditions in these Israeli concentration camps. Many of you, I'm sure, have been following the news in the last couple of days of people who, again, have been tortured to death in the most horrific and grotesque of circumstances. Not only that, but Israeli members of civil society who have tried to break into these detention facilities to release the few soldiers who've actually been detained and questioned for their crimes. That tells you something of the depravity of the Israeli settler colonial project. More than 50 people have been killed, more than 50 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli detention since October 7th. And in fact, if you just open up Google and have a quick look, I was actually looking today for the report that was published this week and pulled up another paper that was published in The Lancet, a prominent medical journal, thinking I was reading about this latest incident, and I actually clocked the date, and it was published in 2014. A decade ago, describing almost exactly the same situation. So, maybe one final thing just to mention to that. There was another report published back in, I believe, April, where an Israeli human rights organization that I won't name because it's unfortunately also been implicated in a whole bunch of other very problematic issues. But one of the good things that they have done is that they have published this report, and they said that there can be no doubt that Israeli healthcare workers are aware of torture taking place in the detention facility in the adjacent building. That these buildings were so close to one another that they surely could hear the screams of people being tortured. They also, of course, were then treating Palestinian detainees with their physical wounds, bandaging them up, literally, and sending them back to be tortured again. This is not a new phenomenon in the history of the Israeli settler colonial project. This, has been going on since the formation of the State of Israel. But what this should remind us is that healthcare, I think we're taught this idea that health and medicine is a sort of universal practice, that we all subscribe to the Hippocratic Oath and this, that, and the other, and basic medical ethical principles. Medicine and health is understood and practiced very differently by different people. Healthcare in Israel, or in occupied 1948 Palestine, exists to prop up the settler colonial project. It exists to keep settlers healthy, to keep Israeli soldiers healthy, and to create and to accentuate health disparities which are very well documented. Medicine and health in Palestine, on the other hand, and again, I'm looking to the memory of Dr. Adnan al-Bursh. There was a poster, I have a photo of this on my phone if folks want to see it, but there was a poster of Dr. al-Bursh in the ER in Al-Aqsa. Several posters of him, actually, and other martyrs on the wall that we would see every day as we were treating patients on the floor and so on. And it said something to the effect of humanitarian martyr, or martyr for humankind, something to that effect. He was remembered, and he will continue to be valorized for the work that he did for the Palestinian people. Simply practicing medicine in Palestine, and certainly in Gaza right now, keeping people alive is a liberatory act, is an act of what to say? Yeah, it's a liberatory politics intrinsically, simply by being there and trying to ensure that Palestinians literally live to see tomorrow, when the aim, of course, of Israel and the UK and the US governments is to see the extermination of the Palestinian people. So, with that, I'm going to stop talking in a minute, but I want to share with you the note that Nermeen sent my way that I wanted to read to you. As I mentioned, she spoke through me to you all when I was here a month ago, and I told her I was going to be back. I told her that we would be opposite 10 Downing Street, that we would be speaking within, hopefully Keir Starmer can hear us. But she said this: I don't want to speak about the situation here anymore. And I think this is, of course, in recognition of the fact that we all know how horrific the situation is. I don't think that needs to be stated again. She says, it's the same all the time and worse. Another of my cousins has been badly injured. Nermeen is, like many other Palestinians in Gaza, several of her family members have been killed or martyred rather, and injured over the course of the last 10 months. It's now closer and closer to us. I feel I'm just waiting for my time now. And this was something that a lot of people said to me between April and June that they weren't saying when I was there in December, January, that people were just waiting for their moment to be killed. What I want to say is thank you for all of you for your continued support for us. The videos and the photos that you send for me make me believe that Palestine is not just in the Palestinians' hearts. Now it's in the heart of every free person. And this is so important because that is something that Israel always works to prevent by a lot of ways. Knowing that the majority of people know the truth now makes me so happy and gives me the belief that inshallah this will all finish soon. And that's from their meaning. That's it.
Thank you, James. I still think you're a hero. Next, we've got a special appearance as well from Media Workers for Palestine. And this is Mrs. Shireen to represent them. Is she here? She did come, did she? Yes. To speak about the recent targeted journalists that we have seen. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, good evening everybody. I almost didn't make it today because one of my sons sick. But believe it or not, I actually got a direct message from 3 brothers in Gaza as I was trying to leave the house, asking me how I'm doing, because they haven't heard from me on Instagram. And they are the ones living and facing genocide and asking me, "Salam sister, how are you doing? We have not heard from you. We hope everything is okay." And at that point, I asked myself, I do not have the luxury to sit at home and not join this protest and to talk about the struggles of Palestinians. Because Palestinians is in all of us, in our thousands, in our millions. And just to remind you, these brothers are 18 years old and raising money to feed the people within their vicinity. So if you want to find out more about them, you can ask me. Now, I brought this with me today, just before I start my speech. It won't be long, it'll be very short. But just in light of what happened a few days ago, which left all of us extremely shocked, if you like. We couldn't believe that the occupation would go as far as they did, but they did, and it has happened. Now, this was one of the placards I used for an event that I organized under Tower Hamlet's Palestine Solidarity Campaign, because I'm on the committee, at the end of December. So that was literally just almost under 3 months since the genocide happened. Now, here it says 97 journalists killed, and this list was produced by the health minister of Gaza, but was shared with me by my friend, who was a journalist in Gaza. His name was Mustafa Thraya. I don't know if you know him, but Mustafa was such a kind soul. A week right after the event, I spoke to Mustafa and told him how successful it was, how everybody just wanted to just help out more, and just realized how awful it has been for them at that point, and even as journalists, you know. And we thought at that point, many other official bodies will do something to help and protect media workers and journalists on the ground reporting from Gaza. Sadly, literally a week after the event, Mustafa was targeted and killed by the occupation, together with Hamza al-Dahdu, the son of Wa'il al-Dahdu, and their friend, their driver, Qusay Salim. They targeted Mustafa's car because Mustafa was a drone operator. Mustafa was a known video journalist who have worked with the likes of Motas Azaiza and many others on the ground in Gaza right now who doesn't have the ability to leave. So that's why I felt inclined to come out and speak today, because I owe it to Mustafa. Mustafa has a young family, and I know that his wife and his girls are struggling to live right now, and I know that many of them are living and sleeping on the streets. In case you're not aware of the depravity of the situation in Gaza, many of them are currently sleeping on the streets with no shelter. What right do we have to say that we are going to stop protesting for them? What right do we have to not sign petitions and not to turn up at any of these protests when they represent us? Their freedom is our freedom. Without Palestinian freedom, there's no freedom for us. Now, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go through my speech, and I'll try and make it quick. It's quite long, but no. Okay. Now, a few days ago, as you know, Israel killed Ismail al-Ghul and his cameraman, Remy Arafi, a journalist in Gaza, a very young journalist, 27 years old. And many of the journalists I know on the ground in Gaza are in their early and mid-20s. Most of them aren't journalists by trade. They literally put the vest on the moment the genocide started, because that was the only thing they know, that they can get the truth out there to people like us. So we actually owe a lot of what's happening right now to them. We must honor them, as well as health workers and other people who are trying to share the truth with the world. We must honor them in our daily lives. Now, Ismail and Remy was reporting on the death of Hanieh near his home in northern Gaza Strip, targeted and then murdered by the occupation. This felt like a particularly cynical murder even by Israeli standards, killed for the purpose of making us feel defeated. And I think when that happened on that day, we all felt that. We felt defeated. We've done so much and this happened. And I swear to you, many people I spoke to on the day didn't know what to do or where to go or what's the next steps, what's coming up after this. But that's what they wanted, right? At the same time, we must not forget the detainees, whom some of you have mentioned earlier, who have been kidnapped, abducted by the IOF and taken to an unknown place, most likely a concentration camp or several concentration camps, where they have been severely tortured, sexually abused, because IOF is just a sickening bunch of people. Absolutely vile and disgusting. There's no other way to describe them. And whoever signs up to be part of that force, they have a lot to question about their morals and their lives. Some of them have even been killed. We must also not forget the Palestinian prisoners who've been put in jails without any trials or convictions. And please remember that half of the Palestinian prisoners are children. I know there are many parents here. Can you imagine your children being put in prison without any trial and not knowing when you're going to be able to see them again? One mother spoke to me about 3 of her boys being in prison. She was only allowed to see one of them once a year. So in order to do the full cycle to see her children, she will have to wait 3 years. Do you know how awful that is? I'm a mother, and I cannot imagine that. Right now, what we must remember is there are many, many innocent Gazans right now in Gaza who have no food, no access to medical care, nowhere to sleep. We've seen images of children sleeping on the streets with no blankets and begging for a drop of water. You know, journalists on the ground is asking us, what more do we need to see from them? You know, why should they continue to report these crimes
And they are right to ask these questions, as our government remains complicit at this point. And the Western media fails to acknowledge the deaths of so many of their peers. And it upsets me. I'm a journalist. I'm a host for a TV show. And it really makes me angry and upset. But through sheer determination and unmatched bravery, they will not give up. And they will continue to report. And in turn, we owe them this. We must not give up on them. We shouldn't feel defeated. We should never give in to relentlessness of the occupation, which is now officially announced as illegal by the ICC. Has changed. The mask has slipped, and people see who they truly are and what they stand for, and that's pure evilness. Then there's the ICJ ruling declaring what we already knew to be true. Israel is an apartheid state and a brutal decades-long occupation. BDS is working. We are seeing companies losing millions of their share prices. Just look at Starbucks. Companies are pulling out of investing in Israel. We're winning, guys. We have to keep doing this. Their main port has gone bankrupt due to blockades in the Red Sea. Many countries have cut ties, although many need to step up. The lies and gaslighting on social media no longer works the way they did. It doesn't work anymore. We've seen the truth too many times. Brick by brick, piece by piece, it is all coming down. It should never have been at the expense of the lives of so many innocent Palestinians. But this is the sick world that we live in. We will continue to speak out against the crimes of the occupation. We will not give up. We will not be silent. Free Palestine. Fine. Free, free. Palestine. Free, free. Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free.
Thank you so much, Shireen, for this powerful speech. And now, last but not least, we've got the Queen of Palestine. No. We think she's our queen. She has dedicated her life for Palestine, and she is the founder of Medical Aid for Palestinians. We welcome Dr. Sui Ang. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm certainly not any queen at all, okay? I will tell you two horrible things which really made me very depressed until I came and I heard Shireen speak, I heard the rest of you speak, and I feel totally different. Apart from the situation in Gaza, in the occupied territories, and in the camps of Lebanon, being one horrible, horrible, painful thing, and every day something worse, I have got an additional burden of having MAP throwing me out. Because I want to tell you something. Palestinians are dying of hunger, and it is not just a case of us giving them a few pounds. It is us speaking up for them, standing up for them, even when it's totally unfashionable. I had 42 years of speaking up and I got no end of trouble, but that is the most important thing I can ever do for Palestinians. None of us just say, oh, I work on polio, I won't work on human rights, I'll I will work on children, but I won't work on adults. I work on women, but I think the man deserves to die. Who are we to make that kind of a judgment? You know, we cannot. You know, Palestine is an entity of people who have been there for a long time. So we, because of self-censorship, has put all these things, right? For instance, have we got a right to go and support a political party who says that starving the Palestinians, not letting them have water and medical care, is a right of defense for Israel? You know who am I talking about? And when I say medical aid for Palestinians, please don't have anything to do with that political party and that person. They shut me out. Can you imagine shutting the founder out? They can't do it, okay? They cannot do it, it's a fact. But it doesn't matter. So what if they shut me out, okay? Palestine is greater than man, okay? And we are so fortunate to be accepted by the Palestinians. Even standing here, many of us, including me now, is nobody. We just come as ourselves, giving ourselves and our heart and our soul to support the Palestinians because something in them reminds us of what humanity is all about. I remember in 1982, after the massacre, when I was sitting in the broken homes of Palestinians, no food, no water, no electricity, yet precious human beings. And because of them, I know that humanity will live. And today, when I hear and see all these horrible things happen in Gaza, you know, 40,000 are dead. 21,000 children are missing. 7.8 thousand are confirmed dead. Okay? Confirmed dead is different from missing. Missing means lost. Whether they're abducted, they're under the rubble, their bodies are rotting, we don't know. Missing. Women giving birth, miscarrying, and rubble. Okay, no homes, nothing. And then this horrible thing about the Israeli soldiers raping a Gaza prisoner until he bled so badly he's got to be taken to prison. Nobody would know about that except that Israeli society was so angry that the military police dared to arrest people who sodomized and gang raped a prisoner. That they mounted a huge protest and they were all released. Can you imagine it happened down here? Can you imagine if some of you are taken to prison, you know, or arrested, and the same happened to you? You know, what kind of society is this? Are we going to let humanity sink to such death? And why is it that only the Palestinians are fighting it with their lives, with their families, with their homes? Why is it that we talk about human rights and the Palestinians are excluded? I am completely angry and I'm completely determined that we are not going to let this go. All right? We will not let this go. Very good. ICJ finally happened. It didn't happen 42 years ago when 3,500 Palestinians were murdered in my refugee camp in 3 days. But it happened now. So thank God for that. It didn't happen by chance. It happened because the Palestinians wrote their own story with their own blood. And the world cannot ignore that. The testimony is written on the walls. Okay? So we are here for them. We are here with them. And they are with us. We are with each other. We support each other. And many of you have been crying, have been so upset. I know it. I know how you all feel. You know, sometimes the day is so dark, the morning starts by you switching on your phone to see any news from Gaza. And it's completely bad news. How are you going to see through this? How? You know, there's darkness, there's broken lives, there's people with no hopes. How are we going to deal with that? We will deal with that because the Palestinians are strong. We will deal with it because we are with each other. We will deal with it because we believe in the sacredness of life. We believe in the human rights of every single human being, not only for ourselves, not only for Westerners, but also for Palestinians and for every oppressed people all over the world. With that as our compass, we are strong. Maybe there are bad days, but remember, there are good days. Maybe you feel broken, but there are those of us who are not broken. We are not all gone together. You know, so we are here to take care of each other, to be with each other, to do small things, very small things, because all these small things we do will contribute to making a change if we believe in it and we do it. Okay? I've lost Mac, or Mac have lost me, but I've got all of you. So it's a happy day. And hello, Gaza. I know you are suffering, but we are with you.
Thank you so much, Lee. Well, you're definitely our queen, Sui. We love you. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming along this evening. We are blessed today that the weather has stood by us, as opposed to last month where we were all drenched like rats. So this is going to happen hopefully every month, first Friday of every month. So next will be in September, and hope to see all of you again. And hopefully, well, as what Sui has just said, we're going to keep continuing. We will not stop. We will not rest. All right? Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Liberation! No to racist occupation!
No to racist occupation!
Liberation!
Liberation!
No to racist occupation!
No to racist occupation!
We want justice, tell me how!
We want justice, tell me how!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
Liberation!
Liberation!
No to racist occupation!
No to racist occupation!
We want justice, tell me how!
We want justice, tell me how!
End the occupation now!
End the occupation now!
Stop killing doctors!
Stop killing doctors!
Stop killing children!
Stop killing children!
Stop killing nurses!
Stop killing nurses!
Stop bombing refugee camps!
Stop bombing refugee camps!
Stop bombing hospitals!
Stop bombing hospitals!
Stop bombing babies!
Stop bombing babies!
End the occupation!
End the occupation!
Decolonize!
Decolonize!
End apartheid!
End apartheid!
Stop the genocide!
Stop the genocide!
Free Palestine!
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 Russia!
Russia! Russia! Russia!